today is a celebration. So welcome to the remembrance and dedication of our awesome media center to Dr. Patricia Ruggiero. We're so excited to see all of you. I see former students here that look like adults. I see her awesome family here. I see educators. I see community members. We see friends. And we greatly appreciate you being here so we can spend some time in our media center, which is the most important place on our campus. And how fitting that the media center be named after somebody who encompassed literacy from her feet to her brain. And really, and I wanted to start off by sharing something with you. As a lot of you know, Trish likes to write, and she wrote us a memo. The last memo that we received from Dr. Ruggiero to Rowlett Middle Academy, and I just felt like I would like to share. It's hard to, in 2 minutes, which Ms. Lay only gave me 2 minutes, which is unfair, but it's hard to fit everything I want to say about Trish into 2 minutes, so I felt like I'd read this memo. So, Trish wrote this, when she was dealing with some difficult times. And it says memo at the top, in case we were wondering. And it says, Rowlett, uniform change. Wear all white. You are angels. So, this is hanging up on our campus, in the front office, outside of my office, but it lives within all of our hearts. When I think about Dr. Ruggiero, I think about relationships, right? She cared so much about them. I think about literacy, of course. She loved to read and she loved to share her love of reading with others. And ultimately, I think about family. And Rowlett Middle encompasses all those things. We would not be here on this campus without Dr. Ruggiero. I think back to us writing the charter application. When I was charged with opening this school, the first call I made was Dudley Lay. The second call we made was Dr. Ruggiero. She said, oh, I know who to call. And when we were writing this charter application, we did it at the kitchen table of Fred. Sometimes he was there chiming in. Sometimes grandkids were chiming in. There were, of course, good food and drink there. And this school started at her kitchen table in a family atmosphere, and we want to continue that on our campus. It's fitting that this is the heartbeat of our school, and Dr. Ruggiero will forever be the heartbeat of our school as well. So we appreciate you being here. I'm going to pass it off to some other esteemed guests that you'll hear from, but we appreciate you being here and with us to celebrate this important day. Who would be next?
I'm going to try and do this, but I'm also going to grab the tissue box, just so you know. I'm going to be up front and center about it. But some of you don't know, Trish Ruggiero and I were friends for over 30 years. I knew Trish before she gave birth to Catherine. So we were actually at her shower, Catherine's baby shower. But Trish and I started working together at Sugg Middle School. And we had this idea that we thought that ESE kids 30 years ago should be included in classes. And it didn't matter if they were gifted or it didn't matter if they weren't gifted. We thought they should be with everyone. So we made a proposal to Judy Bills. And of course we had to do a little writing at her kitchen table. And Judy accepted the proposal. We worked with Florida Inclusion Network. They were very excited about what we were doing, and so we piloted it for the county. And what we found out is that we liked working together, and we would talk, and we would have visions of what schools could be like. Well, if we can do this, what else could we do? And we started talking because Judy Bills always wanted Sugg Middle School to be a school for visual and performing arts. And that didn't come to fruition, but Lee Magnet Middle School did. And so when we were offered the opportunity to go, many of us from SUG did go to Lee Magnet Middle School. And it was where our vision and mission started to really formulate and percolate about what possibilities could be. And the one thing I learned that you don't do to either Trish or myself is you don't tell us no. I am a great middle schooler, and so is Trish. Trish does it much better than I, you know, in the fact that we know how to get around things. And we were blessed in the fact that at one of the galas, I happened to have a nephew that was at Rowlett Academy, and Mr. Flynn walked up and said, "You want to do a middle school?" And I called Trish that night, and I said, "You want to do a middle school?" And it was one of those opportunities we couldn't say no to. The thing I know about Trish is what she did with education was not a job. It was a mission and a vision. She wanted every single kid that walked into a door of a school to have the opportunity to be the best that they could be. And she was going to do her best and helping them be that. And one of the things that I always talk about my dad, that he always said was, what you need to do to be successful is always surround yourself by people who make you a better person. Trish Ruggiero was my person. Okay, this is where the tissues may come in. She was kind, she was thoughtful, she was generous, she was smart as a whip, she was quick, she was selfless, she was eloquent, she was talented, she was genuine, she was full of grace. She was one of the hardest working people I've ever known, and she was so funny. She was the consummate professional, colleague, and the best friend anybody could ever wish to have. And the way I want to end this is actually one of the first things that we did at SUG Middle School in this inclusion class that we had, is she loved Robert Frost, and she loved the poem, A Road Not Taken. And I ask that you receive a small slip of blue paper. And the first thing we would do after we did Harold the Four-Eyed Weirdo, which was a Katya grammar check, and yes, I do know what an Oxford comma is now, thanks to Trish. And I do even know when to use them appropriately. Is I would like for us to read the last 3 lines of the poem, and I did slightly change it, so Trish, please forgive me. But I changed the word instead of I to she, because I think it's so fitting. So if you would, 2 roads diverge in a wood, and she took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And thus, Rowlett Middle Academy is the difference that she has made, along with the difference that she made at SUG Middle School and Electa Arcot Lee Magnet Middle School. So here to our friend Trish. And so the next person up would be Mr. Weston Weintraub, who was...
Try before I get up here, don't you?
Mr. Weston Weintraub, who was one of Trish's students.
Oh, I'm going to need these too.
Okay.
So, to begin, this book. When we came in here, when the media center had just opened, there was basically nothing in here. I mean, this area was finished. There were a couple books spread throughout, but it was basically barren. And I don't personally like stuff like young adult fiction. It's not my cup of tea. On that shelf, these were originally over there. On that shelf, I saw these books. And out of all of them that I could pick, I chose Dante, which is very fitting for a middle schooler. Of course, I have no clue what this is. I couldn't even read it. So when I showed it to Dr. Ruggiero, she just looked at me, and the look was the complete epitome of the words, "What are you doing?" But she wasn't adamant on telling me no. Of course she wouldn't tell me no. She decided to help me read this. And I probably can't recite most of it to you now, I probably can't explain most of it to you now, but at the time I actually understood what I was reading. And it meant a lot to me. And I continued reading these books all throughout 7th and 8th grade. And it meant so much to me specifically that she took the time to go through books that you shouldn't really be reading in middle school. I mean, stuff like this is stuff you'd read in college. But she took the time to go through with me and read these books with me. And I would say with her teaching, the most important aspect was that she was personal. She was personal to every single person in our class. I mean, she was personal to you, she was personal to Cody. Cody, you'd argue all the time with her, but she allowed you to argue with her because she knew it helped you specifically. And I just know I won't have another teacher like her. And I mean, even in college where I'm seeing the way she taught was basically on a college level, I still don't get professors like her. It's so hard to find people like her, and I hope that we have more people like her. But places like this is where we get people like her. I mean, all of you teachers, administrators, principals, you all are the types of people that were like her, who want the same thing in all of us when we leave Rowlett Middle Academy to be the people that she wanted us to be. I mean, with a memo about how all of us are angels. Not everyone sees that, and she saw that in all of us. Thank you.
Mia.
Hi. Hi. It's so appropriate in my high school speech and debate coach is here.
Your mom was really your first.
You're right, absolutely. I think you're about to find that out. I always feel like I need to apologize for how much I'm like my mother, that I bring. No, we don't need to go there. But I understood, pardon me, I understood today I was supposed to speak on the intersection of my mother's personal and professional lives. And so I was spending the past few days thinking about that, recalling conversations in my mind, talking with my family, trying to put together a timeline leading up to her decision to become an educator. And it occurred to me how much of that happened by chance. It also occurred to me that the circumstances leading up to that decision were at times truly tragic. When I was a senior in high school, I knew I wanted to be an English teacher just like my mother. I'm sure that many of you can remember the excitement and drama of your senior years with me. A few of you might be near or in the thick of it now, you know, the SATs and applications and acceptance letters and rejection letters. If you go to this school, if you're in this building or buildings like it, you're still pouring the foundation for those thrilling years ahead of you. If you visited my mom's class at this school or at Electa Arcot Lee Middle, Maggie Middle, where she taught for many years, or at W.D. Stubb Middle when she was my teacher, and where she began her career, you would have seen this trifold display board. And it said Mrs. Ruggiero's, a lot of nods, Mrs. Ruggiero's, later Dr. Ruggiero's middle school years. And do you remember what was on the board? Pictures.
Cheerleading pictures.
Cheerleading picture, right? Her first love letter, she told me she didn't know what the scratched out part said. I still think she's lying, but she took it to her grave. Her report cards were in there, all A's. But that was not the work of an obedient and studious girl. Dr. Ruggiero poured a solid foundation at middle school. Yeah, so it would come as a surprise to no one here that the spring of her senior year, she was at the top of her class, and she had her acceptance letter from Georgia Tech, where she planned to go to earn an engineering degree. That same spring, her father suffered a debilitating stroke. He was paralyzed from the neck down, and Trish made her plans, choosing to stay at home with her mother and her 14-year-old brother to care for her father. Can you imagine it? Driving to Atlanta, not to go to your dorm room and meet your roommates, not to attend classes to pursue your dream of becoming an engineer at a time when the American engineering workforce was only 3% women. No, she drove to Atlanta to visit with doctors and specialists to figure out just how upended their life had become. I like to think at that time my mother relied on the advice of her first teacher, her mother, Joyce May Smith. I can easily recall her soft twang, but I could not imitate it. And what she'd say, I think it's Catherine so much because she had so much to say to you, well now sugar, you have to accentuate the positive. You know, the folksy advice of a simple woman, I thought, right? Taken from a World War II era popular song. It told us we needed to adjust our perspective, I thought, to see the silver lining or the cup is half full. I repeat it to my children, in part to build a connection between them and my mother and her mother. But it's also good advice. She was so positive. I took it to be passive, though, so I misunderstood. Trish did eventually leave home. She met and married my father, and she moved to Mississippi to start a family, to be with my father's family. She enrolled at Mississippi State, and she graduated just weeks before she delivered her first child. I always like to imagine as a kid her shoving that big old belly with me in it, you know, into the desk, her long hair, acing the exams, because she had prepared. I think I might look at my phone this time, if you'll forgive me. That same child, right? Yeah, I was a kid in the belly, and then later, I asked my mom, I said, why'd you become a teacher? And she said, because I thought it would be a good job to have with a family. I know, right? So that was insane to me. It's insane to me now, looking back at the time. I was like, oh, yeah. Because any morning at 4 a.m., you would find her sprawled on the sofa at that kitchen table, surrounded by student work. She spent chunks of her summer developing curriculum, the opera, Dolly, Rita Cross Rowlett, Rita Cross Lee before that. She earned her master's. She earned her doctorate. She opened a school. You know, so I think easy, sweet teacher schedule. LOL mom. And half of Facebook. Yeah, so she accentuated the positive. And what I didn't understand about that then, but I understand now, and if you study music or language, you probably understand it too, but when you see an accent mark, you have to lean into the note, or lean into the syllable. And boy, did my mother lean into her life as an educator. It was her second choice, and none of us really knew it. So I'm just so grateful to get to spend this time, more than 2 minutes, but I was just gonna take it. I was gonna break the rules like my mama learned to tell me, to have this time to remember her with all of you. Thank you for being here. And I hope that all of the people, the students, whomever, who visit this library, beautiful library, named after my mother, that folks are inspired to lean into the stories of their lives. So thank you all for being here.
It's Miss Telesco, and then we will eat, drink, and be merry.
Okay. Then I have to make it 2 minutes if we're eating, drinking, and be merry. Am I allowed to pick this up on?
Yeah.
Keep it on? Okay. I actually did have something written down because anybody who knows me knows I can go way off topic and talk very long. So, and Miss Lay was very strict. So, Mia, you got by with that one. I do not. Okay. So, if anybody hasn't met me yet, my name is Joanne Telesco. I have the great privilege to be the media specialist this year of this beautiful library. So, welcome officially to the Dr. Patricia Media Center at Middle Academy. Revitalizing this space and realizing this coming to fruition has been such a wonderful labor of love, and it's taken quite a bit of time. Yeah, it's taken quite a bit of time, but I'm hoping that as we continue to grow that we really mirror what Tricia's vision would be for this space as well. And there's lots of people to thank, of course. Dudley Lay, for spearheading this with such personal attention and love and determination and devotion that only a coworker and a dear friend of Trish could bring to the task. So it was a real undertaking. Our bookkeeper, our custodians have been so helpful. Mr. Asha, Wade Asha, for the gorgeous plants. If you haven't looked outside yet, we have beautiful palms in beautiful pots, Adirondack chairs, and umbrellas out there, which was due to the fact of many of your generous donations, and now students can sit outside and be part of nature while they read. It's just going to be beautiful and relaxing, and actually our art students are going to be working on a mural that's going to be all on the concrete out there as well. So it'll be a really beautiful space, so thank you to Wade for that. Mr. Clark, wherever you are, thank you for your confidence in all of the decisions that we made. So you guys know he's just a wonderful leader, so he did not question anything, and he just said, yes, do what you want to do with that. And me and Frank, and just you, not only for you generously giving your time, well, her time, because we know as educators how much time you spend in your space and not always with your family, and we know that. So you kind of gave us her time as well, so thank you. And for everybody here who donated as well funds, we really appreciate it, because it really brought, as Weston said, from a very meager space with not a lot of books to a very vibrant space. So I'm so excited to kind of be at the helm of that right now. When I was deciding on what books to choose, that was a big task, and it was really, really important to me. So obviously, as we know, Trish absolutely loved literature. She loved everything. When I think of her, well, I've got to go on script. Okay, so everything about her was really about patience and understanding and character and connecting, and I think Weston said it really well, where it was like every individual, she connected with everyone as individuals. And the first time I met her was actually Trish and Frank hosted the inaugural RMA staff, and I remember Brian was sitting at the head of their dining room table, and we sat there and we ate together, and I remember that's where I met Megan, and that's just where I met everybody. And I thought that, okay, right from this point, she's welcoming us into her home, and of course with wonderful food. She is generous, she is kind, she's thoughtful. I loved her cadence of speech. She thought, she's such a clever woman. She thought so much as she spoke, and you could get that from just the cadence of the way that she spoke. It was slower, it was very thoughtful, it was very caring. So I knew about that from her from just a coworker perspective. But then what I found out from her students as an educator, she was all of that and more. This unlimited supply of patience and empathy and caring, and I just love for everything that she did. I mean, the honor roll students loved her, the quiet, introverted kids that didn't want to talk in class loved her. this is what I love about her, and I'm going to be emotional too. She had a really special place in her heart for the challenging kids. And I think that is the mark of a fantastic educator. It really, really is. And I think it's like what Weston said. She found a way. She pushed Cody. I mean, she knew how to connect and get respect from kids and reach them. And she was always that person that said, you never know what someone's going, what's going on at home or what's going on in their lives. And every kid was special to her, truly. And a lot of people say that, and it was true for her. So when I had to choose the books, I had to keep all of that in mind. So the literature that I chose, and that took a lot of time. So I chose some classics because those are treasures to build on. Obviously, we're reading Bronte, so hey. Character-focused books because she lived and breathed the 7 habits. But the reason why I actually became a media specialist is because I wanted students to do 2 things when they read. One, to find themselves in the pages of a book for when they feel alone and they feel like no one else is going through their struggles, to read about someone else who is. And that was important to me, and I know that that was important to her. So I look for books like that, or books that would help students to be more empathetic and more understanding of others who are unlike them. So I chose books specifically for that too. And then I also chose content-driven books that maybe didn't have the highest level vocabulary and weren't as challenging for readers who maybe had more challenges in that department. They don't want to read about your little kid stuff. They want to read really engaging, action-packed literature. So I looked for like high engagement books that might have been written at a lower vocabulary level. So I looked for all of that because I wanted to reach the kids that I know she tried so hard to reach. So with all of your donations, just hundreds of books were purchased. The books that were purchased with those funds, they have a book plate inside, so that the students know when they open it up that these books were donated, thanks to all of you in her name. And so I hope, this media center so far has been full of a lot of life and energy this year, and I think she would be so happy with that, and I know the students will really enjoy the books too. Okay, so what we would like for you to do now, because it's a little longer than 2 minutes, is, as you've been, talking and sharing stories, and to continue to do that, we do have refreshments down below. Hopefully you noticed her name above the door when you came in, and if you did not notice, there's some favorite photos that Dudley helped choose on the wall as well, so you can take a look at that. But definitely trade stories. Apparently, Ms. Lay has one about the world's biggest peach cobbler that you can ask about. But anyway, most of all, just enjoy yourselves here in the Dr. Patricia Ruggiero Media Center, and I feel like her vibrancy and her love is within this space, but really within all the halls and the classrooms of Rowlett Middle Academy, because she really is just the heartbeat of the school. So thank you very much.